Hey guys, welcome to today's training. This is Daniel Levis, your host. Welcome to the 2.8 million leads, 175,000 buyers in 17 different non-IM markets case study with Ryan Levesque. I wonder if I could call on some of you folks out there listening to confirm that you are indeed hearing my voice. If you could type something into the chat box, please. Maybe Ryan, you could say a few words before I officially introduce you.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here today. I'm fortunately in the deep south in South Texas right now. It's spring break week here in Texas, and we took the kids to see their grandparents. So I'm traveling. I've got my mobile office, and this is the one thing I was really looking forward to this week from a work perspective, because I think this is something that for anybody who's listening to this right now, that can really transform your business. And I hope you'll agree with me once we start diving into some of the meat and potatoes of what we got to cover today.
All right. So Megan, I, for some reason, can't see the question box, but hopefully you can see it. And can you tell us if people are responding?
Let's see. I'll look too. Let's see. Questions. Yes, looks like Robert says yes. Andrew says hello. Hey, Andrew. Maureen says she can hear us just fine. David says yes. John says voice good. Daniel says I'm here. Dion says audio confirmed. David says all okay. Enrique says audio is good. John, hey Daniel, I can hear you. Biggie says hi, I can hear you both. Tim says yes. Robert says your voice. What did he say? Your voice goes with me. LOL. So I think we're good. I think we're good to go. I think we're good to go.
That was an inside joke. Your voice goes with me. All right, cool. That's great. Well, this training is heaven sent, guys. If you are struggling to make cold traffic work, or if you're tired of relying on JV traffic and internet launches, or if you simply want a proven evergreen funnel that you can build once and then set it and forget it. Because Ryan has figured out how to overcome one of the biggest hurdles that any marketer selling anything faces. And that is figuring out exactly what the customer wants, how they want it, when they want it, how they conceptualize that result that they're looking for, and all of the other key drivers that create or kill sales. Now you might think, well, I'll just survey the market, or I'll survey my customers before or after they buy, and I can figure this stuff out. And that is dead wrong. Because when you ask people questions outside of the heat of the decision-making moment, there's a huge gap between what people say they want and what they really want. There's also a huge gap between why they say they bought or didn't buy and reality. Only when you integrate questions into the actual funnel, in the heat of the decision-making moment, do you approach the truth. And then you can adapt the funnel dynamically, literally on the fly, based on those responses, which means you can come much closer to entering the real conversation that's taking place between the prospect's ears, and you can become a much more positive influence at the point of decision. And that's just one of the things that Ryan has figured out how to do. And as they say, the truth will set you free. When you can read your prospect's mind like a Vulcan mind meld, you can serve the market better. You can solve problems more effectively. You can gain more of the prospect's trust and confidence. And you can dramatically increase your conversion. So with that, Ryan, welcome to the call. Super glad to finally have you doing this important training.
Daniel, man, based on the way you describe this, I want to get access to what you're presenting, because that's some pretty good stuff. No, seriously, all joking aside, I'm really thankful to be here for the opportunity to share this, and I'm really excited to dive right in, because we've got a lot to cover today, and I want to make sure that we have time to get to all the important stuff. So without further delay, if it's okay, I'm just going to dive right in. So we're going to be talking about...
Sorry, I had myself.
So we're going to be talking about what I call sort of the weird ask formula or survey funnel formula. And the numbers that you gave, Daniel, are true. The numbers have since grown and continue to grow. It's generated over 3 million leads, over 200,000 customers across 23 different non-IM markets, and that number has grown since you mentioned the 17 markets, which has generated over $100 million in revenue online. And what I'm most excited about is at this time right now, we're actually generating over 50,000 leads per day across all the different markets that we're in. So we're generating 50,000, it's about 55,000 total opt-ins every single day across all the different markets that we're in using the exact process that I'm going to be sharing with you today and showing you how to use in your business. Now, as Daniel mentioned, one of the questions I'm always asking when I attend some sort of online training is this for me? Is this something that I can use in my business? So I want to take a moment just to explain who this is for, so you can decide if this is something that has a place in your business. So as Daniel mentioned, if you're launching a new business, or you're launching a new product, or you've got a new project that you're looking to get off the ground, or if you have an existing business and maybe you've struggled to make cold traffic work, and by cold traffic I mean anything from Facebook advertising or Google ads or any sort of display advertising, or if you're tired of having to rely on affiliates or joint venture traffic and running internal launches just to keep your lights on, or if you simply want that proven evergreen funnel like Daniel mentioned that you can simply build once and then just set it and forget it, or if you have clients that you work with who might be in any one of those situations, I'm going to show you what I consider to be the holy grail of online marketing, which is how to convert cold traffic into customers. Now, whenever I say this, I understand that it comes with skepticism, and I'm the chief among skeptics. And the thing that comes to mind is, well, yeah, this sounds great, but how are you going to do this? What's the process? How is this different from anything that I've heard or tried before? Well, the way you're going to do this is by using this. What you see in front of you here is the exact process that we use to get into market after market to take businesses from 6 to 7 figures, 7 to 8 figures, by reconfiguring what they're doing in terms of their online sales funnel. And it's all right here on this one slide. Now, because our time is limited and we don't have necessarily time to cover everything that you see right here on this slide, what we're going to do is I'm going to spend today focusing on 3 of the highest leverage parts of this process that you can see here in these 3 red boxes. Now, whenever I've done this training in the past, I've always gotten people who have said, well, is there any way that, I didn't get a chance to jot down everything that's on this slide. So here's what I want to do. If enough people are interested at the end of this presentation, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a way available for you to get a high-resolution version of this flowchart. And if you're interested in this, if this is something that you want, do me a favor right now in the chat, say, yes, Ryan, I'd like one of those, I'd like a high-resolution version of this, a high-resolution version of this flowchart. And then if enough people are interested, my assistant, Megan, who's on the training call with us right now, will make a way available at the end of the call for you to download this. And just looking to make sure. Yes, Scott says, would love it. Tracy said yes. Ed says yes. Eric, yes. David, Bill, Steve, Renee, Shell, Barb, Enrique, Raven. Awesome. Okay. Sounds like a plan. Good. So with that being said, focusing on these 3 areas, in terms of how you transform that cold traffic into customers, the question is, how do you do this? Well, you're going to ask people what they want. Now, you're going to need to do this in a counterintuitive, indirect way. And it goes back to what Daniel was saying at the beginning of this presentation. And by the way, that's a cover of our book, Ask, which talks a little bit talks about some of the high level concepts that we're going to be talking about today in a much more detailed, tactical way. Now, the reason why you can't directly ask people what they want is because people don't know what they want. Now, there's a quote that's attributed to Henry Ford that says, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. There's also another quote that's more recent that was attributed to Steve Jobs when Jobs is famously quoted as saying, focus groups are worthless. People don't know what they want until they see it. So how do you reconcile those 2 ideas? How do you reconcile the idea of the key is asking people what they want, but you can't directly do it? Well, it comes down to asking people there's only 2 types of questions that you can ask people that you can get an accurate response to, an accurate answer to when it comes to asking people what they want. And it goes to a scenario that I want to kind of imagine for a moment And I want you to imagine that you are sitting in your living room and you are hanging around with a bunch of your friends or maybe your family. Maybe you guys are watching a movie or you're watching something on TV and just all hanging around. And then someone says, hey, you guys starting to get a little bit hungry? And then someone in the group says, yeah, we could get some food. And eventually, someone will say, well, what do you guys feel like? What should we do? It's kind of silence. Everyone kind of looks around at each other, shrugs their shoulders, and says, I don't know, what do you feel like? And you do that dance. How many times does that happen? Hey, let's go out to eat. What do you feel like? I don't know, what do you feel like? See, people don't know what they want. What people are good at answering, two things. And this is the first thing that you want to write down. And if you're taking notes, and I strongly suggest that you take notes because we're going to be diving into some important stuff today. The first thing is, so you go back to that same scenario. If instead of asking people what they want, if you would ask people, well, let's start narrowing down the list a little bit. What is it that you don't feel like eating? Well, then you'll get all sorts of useful responses. You'll get responses like, people will say things like, I don't want pizza because I'm trying to eat gluten-free, or I don't want to do sushi because I'm allergic to shellfish. And so that brings us to the first type of question that people are really good at answering that tells you what people want, and that is what people don't want. Now, the second thing is this. Again, same scenario. You're sitting around with that group of friends. You're figuring out what you guys want to do to eat. And then you ask a different type of question. And you say, okay, well, let's narrow it down even further. What is it that you had for dinner last night? Most people, unless they have retrograde amnesia or they're trying to be smart with you, are going to be able to tell you, oh, I had this for dinner last night. We went for seafood last night, or we had Italian last night. So that takes us to the second type of question that people are really good at answering, and that has to do with past behavior. So now, in this situation, if Ford, instead of asking people, instead of asking people what they wanted, if he would have asked, well, what is it that you don't like about riding horses, he would have gotten all sorts of useful information. People would have said things like, I don't like the fact that horses are slow. I don't like the fact that my horse needs to be fed. I don't like the fact that when it rains outside and I ride my horse, I get wet, and so on and so forth. And so the reason why I bring that up is because when it comes to asking questions and using surveys, the reason why most people haven't generated $100 million in online revenue across 23 different markets is because most marketers tend to use surveys wrong. And this is true for people who have used surveys and they've said, well, they don't work. They don't give me the information that I need. Well, what we're going to be talking about today is how to use surveys and asking questions the right way, asking the right questions at the right time to the right people to answer the question, what is it that people really want to buy from you? Not what they think they want, not what you think they want, not even what they say they want, but what they really want. Now, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be covering today, one of the second questions I'm always asking myself whenever I attend an online training presentation is, should I pay attention to the person delivering the training? So I only think it's fair that if you're not familiar with who I am and what I do, that I just briefly introduce who I am so that you can decide for yourself if this is something that's worth paying attention to, and I'm someone that is worth listening to when it comes to the subject that we're going to be talking about. So again, my name is Ryan Levesque. People know me as the funnel specialist. And by funnel specialist, I'm talking 3 million leads, 200,000 customers, 23 different non-IM markets, over $100 million in revenue. Some of the markets include, in the client partners that I work with in a partnership relationship, include the #1 golf instruction site in the world, the #1 tennis instruction site in the world, the #2 satellite TV provider in the United States, the #3 business funding provider in the United States. And by the way, these are all companies that you would be familiar with. The #1 alkaline health company in the UK and Australia, one of the top 5 fitness instruction companies in the world, a company that produces millions of dollars worth of TV infomercials every single year, one of the top 10 weight loss supplement companies in the United States. This is one I'm sure that you've seen their advertisements online. The #1 dog training property online in the world. And the list goes on and on. Now, the way that I work typically, and the way my company works, is clients will pay us a high upfront fee to build out one of the funnels that you're about to see. And you can see the fees here range from anywhere from $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 upwards of $50,000, $75,000 upfront, sometimes broken down in payments, as well as an ongoing recurring royalty on the revenue generated from that funnel. And so you can see here that royalty ranges from anywhere from a few $1,000s a month, in some cases to tens of thousands of dollars a month in online royalty. Now, in addition to the high-level private client work that I do, I also have a high-level private coaching group where I work with 20 CEOs and entrepreneurs at any one time to train them on the methodology that you are about to get your hands on. And these 20 CEOs pay $5,000 a month to get access to 1 hour of my time every single week. This group has been sold out for the last 18 months, and there are over 100 people waiting to get into this group right now. Now, the reason why there's so much demand for this process, for this methodology, and why so many people are so interested in using this and implementing this in their business is because this stuff works. So what I want to do is I want to go through a few examples so you can get a sense for the type of potential that's available to you when you start implementing this process. So what you see in front of you here is a dashboard, one client partner, one funnel in one market, where last year we did just under $9 million in revenue and $6 million in profit. So $8.967 million last year in 2014. Now, lest you think that this is something that only applies to large 7, 8, 9-figure businesses, then here's another example of a smaller business that's a 6-figure business that we are working with that uses ClickBank as their payment processor. So last year in this business, they did about $126,000 in sales. The first month in 2015, and this needs to be updated a little bit, we did just under $28,000 in revenue. And so what that is doing is it's put us on pace to 3x their business last year, and it's a result of having applied what you're about to get access to in this training. Now, unless you think that this is something that only works for existing businesses, let me walk you through a case where we actually took a business from nothing, which is what you see here, to 6 figures in 12 months using this process to break into a new market. This is a market where we had 0 experience, 0 connections, 0 resources, 0 presence. We researched the market, went into it, took it from nothing to 6 figures within 12 months, and we're on pace to do about $250,000 a year in revenue in this brand new market, and we're just scratching the surface. Now, what's interesting about all this is most people get into the consulting business as a stepping stone to launching their own business. The story of how I learned this methodology, mastered this methodology, developed this, and optimized it to where it is today is somewhat interesting. So my background is I'm the first person in my family ever to go to college. I grew up in a very blue-collar background. Not only was I the first in my family to go to college, but I ended up going to an Ivy League school, studied at Brown University, where I studied Asian studies and neuroscience. I worked on Wall Street for a period of time, and then later worked in Asia, in China, where I was running a massive sales office expansion project for the insurance company AIG. And then in my mid-20s, I basically had this quarter-life crisis, and I said, I don't want to be doing this anymore. My wife was based, I was based in Shanghai. My wife was based in Hong Kong. She was getting a PhD at Hong Kong University, and I said, I never want to be living this crazy bi-country marriage ever again. I want to have a business that's location independent, that we can live anywhere in the world and we can be together. And so I started researching this idea of building an online business, and I stumbled out of the gate, made a lot of mistakes, and eventually I stumbled upon a gentleman who became one of my single most important mentors in business, a man by the name of Dr. Glenn Livingston. And Glenn is someone who had quietly entered all these different niche markets, ranging from guinea pig care to radon detection, and collectively was making something like $30,000 a month across all these different markets. And I decided to invest in his training program, had it shipped to me in China. Later on went to mentor under him, study under him directly for 2 years. Later on went on to train people and coach people through his methodology, which was the foundation for my methodology, which I then later used to enter successfully 3 different markets: the jewelry making market, the gardening market, and what you see here, the memory improvement market, using the exact methodology that you are about to get your hands on. And I took each of these businesses to mid-6 figures, And my goal at the time was I was going to enter 20 different markets myself, and I was going to build 20 $500,000 businesses, and collectively I'd have this $10 million empire. And that was like my grand plan. That was like my life business plan. And I was approached by someone who said, hey, listen, we have a $50 million business, and how much would it cost if we just handed you a pile of money to do this for us, do your methodology, this survey funnel methodology, and it wasn't called that at the time, but implement this methodology and get paid a percentage of the revenue as a result. And it wasn't something I had ever planned on doing, and I quoted a number that was higher than I thought he would accept. He accepted it, and that was the first of the all the markets outside our own businesses that we went into. Now, the reason why I went through this is so you can see that this is how we took our first business from nothing to $25,000 a month in 18 months. And I say that because no matter where you are in your business right now, if you have an established 6, 7, or 8-figure business, or you're going through what I affectionately call our tuna fish days, when I know what it's like to start from nothing. After I quit my job at AIG in China, I moved in with my wife in Hong Kong, where she was a PhD student. We were living on $500 a month. That was her stipend. We had a $50 a week grocery budget. I was working on a $450 laptop and built a multi-million-dollar business off that laptop that I bought off Best Buy's website. It was a Gateway laptop. And we later moved to the United States. We moved to Brownsville, Texas, where we also lived in a very cheap $500 a month apartment where my wife was working as a museum curator, getting paid $36,000 a year. We had no furniture. We had no cable. We had nothing. We didn't buy anything new. We had one car. I drive my wife to and from work, so I know what those days are like. And no matter where you are in your life right now, I want to show you that you can use the methodology that you're about to get access to take your business to the next level, or to start your business and achieve what you'd like. Now, the reason why I wanted to go through this is not to brag or give my ego a boost, but I want to give you the confidence that what you're about to get access to is something that's been tested across different markets. It's been used in different scenarios, different business models, so that you have the confidence to know that this has been battle tested and stress tested, and it is something that you can consider using in your business. So I'm going to dive right in. And by the way, if you spend time on my consulting website, you'll notice that there are hundreds of testimonials from private clients, agency clients that have worked with us to implement this. Now, before we dive into all the good stuff, I want to leave you with one last thought. I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we're going to dive right in. And that thought is this: simplicity is powerful. Okay? I think as entrepreneurs, and I'm just as prone to this as anybody else on this training, is the idea of shiny object syndrome. There's this temptation. We see something new, some arbitrage opportunity between Facebook ads and Google ads, some opportunity that's going to last 5 minutes, and we have to jump on it and take advantage of it, and before we know it, it's going to disappear. I've been doing what I've been doing for the last decade, going on 10 years now, and I have cold traffic funnels that have been running on Google AdWords traffic for almost 10 years and virtually unchanged. And what's attractive about that is what you're about to get access to here is something that you can build once, spend some time up front. This is not something that you're going to build in a weekend and just make some quick cash. This is something that you can use to build a solid foundation for your business. And there's something to be said about being able to go to bed at night knowing that you are building your business on solid ground, that there's a solid foundation, and as Dan Kennedy likes to say, you're building a moat around your business that inoculates competition, that makes you protected from people coming in and stealing overnight what you've built. Okay? So the concepts we're going to be talking about today on the surface might seem simple in some cases, but I want to remind you that simplicity is powerful. Now, if you bear with me just 1 second, I'm going to get a quick sip of water, and if you have a pen and notebook, this is the time that you're going to want to take it out because we're going to be diving into some important stuff. If you haven't noticed already, I tend to speak fast to try to cover as much as possible in the short amount of time that we have. So I want to start by talking about the three of the biggest mistakes that I see with businesses that I work with and businesses that I speak to when it comes to building their online business. And the reason why I want to do this is because virtually all companies I work with and see struggle from at least one of these three problems or mistakes. And so as I'm going through them, I want you to think about in your business, which of these three mistakes might you be making right now as we speak? So the first one is that traffic is too broad. Let me explain what I mean by that exactly. So let's pretend for a moment that your business is you're a local business. Let's say you are like a local plumber. When you're going after a traffic like the keyword, and let's say you're based in my hometown of Austin, Texas. So let's say you are going after keyword traffic that is local plumber, Austin, Texas to fix leaky toilet. I think most of us on this call could write a compelling ad, build a compelling landing page for people who are searching on that specific keyword. But the problem is this. How many people are actually searching on that keyword every single month? Maybe 1, 2? The volume is extremely small. So what happens if we want to start going after broader traffic to increase the volume that we might be going after in terms of the potential leads that we might be going after, and we go to a keyword like plumbing? Or what about home improvement? Or what about advertising on DIY.com? Or even advertising on Yahoo.com and going after a mass market audience of people who are potentially interested in something related to plumbing or home improvement or DIY projects? See, the challenge is it becomes really difficult to scale your business beyond that tiny little corner that you might work on unless you use what we're going to be covering today. And I discovered this myself in one of the businesses that we launched, where we're going to be talking about this business in a little bit more detail to show you some numbers around what happens when you start implementing some of the specific tactical things we're going to be talking about in our Rocket Memory business. So you heard me, I mentioned that we entered the memory improvement niche as one of our markets, and we have a business in that market called Rocket Memory, which is a series of courses that are designed to help people improve their memory. And it leverages that Ivy League background in neuroscience that I mentioned earlier today. Now, when we first went into this market, we actually struggled, and I'm embarrassed to say quite a bit. One of the reasons why is because all the traffic in this market, or the bulk of the traffic, is all centered around keywords like improve memory, or how to improve memory, or memory improvement. But the problem is with those keywords is that you might have someone on the other end of that keyword search who is anyone from ranging from an 18-year-old kid looking for test-taking tips and looking to improve their memory as a student, all the way through a 65-year-old man concerned about mental decline, and then everything in between. So, and we're going to be talking about this in a moment, but the question is, how do you speak to that entire spectrum of people all searching on that one keyword, which doesn't give you enough information about the person searching him or herself? How do you develop a compelling ad, compelling landing page strategy, compelling lead acquisition strategy, compelling sales funnel that applies and appeals to everybody in that spectrum? The answer is you can't, unless you use what we're going to go into together. The second problem that I see with businesses that I work with and that I speak to is that people don't know why their customers or non-customers don't buy. Now, I want to ask a question, and if you don't have GoToWebinar pulled up, pull up the chat in GoToWebinar, and my question to you is this. When it comes to a cold traffic, a sales conversion rate, so the percent of people who land on your website that convert into buyers, what is a typical number? What is the typical percentage that you might expect? And I'm just curious, and this is the question, so go to the GoToWebinar chat right now, and I'm curious to know what percentage, type it in the chat bar, what percentage do you think is a reasonable sales conversion rate, so the percent of people who land on your website that convert into customers? What's the percentage that you think as a kind of an acceptable percentage. Okay. So Maureen says 1%, 15%, Daniel, Felicia 60%, Tracy 10%, Ray says conversion rate depends on the market, Barb says 3%, Dan says 5%, Ed says 20%, Kimberly says 12%, Marty says 4%, 3% would be good, says James, 1% says Renee, John says sales conversion is not particularly useful. Be curious to know the thinking behind that. Ed says low for me, 5 to 10%. Raven says 30%. Casey says 1. John says 1. Dean says 10 to 15. Nada says 5. David says 11. Good. Okay, and a bunch more responses. Good, good, good. Well, it's an interesting range. It's an interesting range. The answer is, generally speaking, 1%. 1% means you're in the game. And we're talking sales conversion rate here, not opt-in conversion rate. So let's make sure that we're clear about that. So some of the higher numbers, I think some folks might have been talking about opt-in conversion rate. Sales conversion rate, the percent of people who land on your website that actually convert into customers, 1% is kind of the neighborhood of what you might be in. If you're doing 2%, then you're doing, generally speaking, very well. If you're doing 5%, man, you're freaking rocking it. And if you're doing any more than 5%, and if you're doing maybe 10%, well, put it this way, if you're doing 10%, you're not on this training webinar with us right now. You're sipping cocktails on your private island in the Caribbean because you've made yourself a fortune. But if you look at that another way, what that really means is even in the best case scenario, at 10% sales conversion rate, 90%, 9 out of 10 people who land on your website are not converting into customers. And if you want to look at that another way, 90% of all your traffic is a complete waste. 90% of all the time, all the money, all the effort, all the energy spent in generating that traffic, and it doesn't matter if it's SEO, paid advertising, if it's Facebook ads, YouTube ads, Google advertising, display ads, joint venture traffic, affiliate traffic, like I mentioned, traditional SEO traffic that might trickle onto your site. If 90% of that traffic of those visitors are not buying, it's a waste. And the thing that frustrates me about that is that most people in our industry, they just take that as at face value. They take that as just a cost of doing business. But you see, the real secret to taking your business to the next level is finding that 90%, finding that portion of the traffic that's coming to your website that's not resulting in sales, and converting that, a portion of that 90% into customers. And we're going to show you how to do that, and show you how to do that in just a moment. The third problem that I see with the customers and clients that I work with, and even businesses that I speak to, is not knowing what else to sell your customers. Now again, we're going to go to GoToWebinar chat on this one, and I'm going to ask you to fill in the blank. I'm going to ask a question, I'm going to ask you to fill in the blank, first thing that comes to mind. When I say the following, when I say the money is in the blank, how do you complete that sentence? The money is in the blank. Complete the following sentence. We'll go through the chat again to see what responses, I'm curious to know what people think of when they hear that statement. And this is going to tie back to what we're talking about here, this third problem of not knowing what else to sell your customers. So if we go through, see some of the responses that have come through. Money's in the customer's hand, in the list, in the funnel, offer, relationship with the list. Money's in the list. Let's see, what else? Dean says product. Enrique says relationship. Let's see, Dion says content. Felicia says marketing. Tim says follow-up. So Emil says sales. Raven says follow-up, relationship. Auxiliary products. List, lips. Lisp. Let's see. List, upsell, pixel, list, relationship with the list. And David is the first one to answer the question in the way that I'm thinking of. And David says back end. The money is in the back end. You say in this day and age, in most markets, and I know this because of the type of volume that we do, it's rare to be able to scale up your business beyond a very small business and make money on the front end, make profit on the first thing that you sell to your customers. The money is made on the back end. The money is made on the other stuff that you sell that customer. In fact, in some of the markets that I'm in, it's not uncommon to actually lose a little bit of money on that first sale, what we call a loss leader, in order to make money with all the other stuff that we sell. In fact, there are certain industries today, like new car industry, where it's rare to actually make money on the sale of a new car, even though you might be spending $20, $30, $40, $50,000 on a new car. If you believe it, the dealer does not make a lot of money, if any money, on that vehicle purchase. What they make money on is all the aftermarket stuff that you might add and the service. So if you go to the dealership to get your car serviced, that's where they make the money. And the car, believe it or not, is an actual loss leader. So the question is this. Knowing that the money is in the back end, all the other stuff that you sell your customer, let me ask you this. How many email lists are you on where you subscribe to someone's email list? And it's like the stuff that they sell you feels like they're throwing spaghetti on the wall and wondering what sticks. In other words, there's no rhyme or reason to the first thing that's sold to you and then the second thing that's sold to you. There's no thought-through, strategic, sequential sense for why each thing is sold to you. It just feels like a random smattering of stuff. Well, see, that's how most businesses operate, with the exception of a few select companies that really have this down. And the secret is this. The secret is selling one thing that sets up the sale for the next thing. In fact, the sale of the first thing that you sell actually drives demand for the next thing that you sell, which then drives demand for the third thing that you sell, and so on and so forth. At the most basic level, if you've ever been to a bar and you've sat at the bar and the bartender has passed a dish of peanuts or pretzels or something like that to you, we all know that the whole point of the peanuts and the pretzels is what? To make you thirsty. So you start buying drinks. It sets up the sale that they're trying to generate. So few businesses get this right, and the reason why is it's tricky to figure this out unless you use what we're about to cover. So now that we've talked about three of the biggest problems that businesses face, and you've thought, well, which of these problems do I have in my business? What am I not? Where's the opportunity in my business to maybe improve in these three areas? Let's talk about the solutions. Now, the solution, if you're wondering, well, what is it? Well, it's this right here. This process right here solves everything that we just talked about. And like I mentioned before, because our time is limited, we're going to focus on three of the highest leverage areas of this process so that my goal is that you can begin immediately applying what we talk about today on the training. You can literally take notes and immediately after this start putting this into action in your business. And we're going to be talking about the three things labeled 1, 2, 3 on this page, one at a time, starting with number 1, something that we call, in my world, the micro-commitment bucket survey. So let's talk about what that is exactly. So remember, the first problem that we talked about is the fact that traffic is too broad, right? So going after and scaling your business beyond just a tiny little sliver of traffic, if you want to be in an environment where you're generating, you know, we have markets, and these numbers I know are hard to believe, and it was hard for me to believe when I first started scaling this up as well. We have markets that we're doing anywhere between 12, 14, 15,000 leads per day. So it's 15,000 leads per day, not on an entire list. That's how many email opt-ins we're generating in a single day. And we have many other markets that we're generating in the thousands of emails per day, and virtually every market at least in the multi-hundreds per day. Okay? So just ask yourself, if you could generate those types of leads every single day and sell to them, what would that do for your business? See, the challenge is you have to first solve this problem of going after that broader traffic that might not make sense unless you use what we're about to go through. And again, we're going to focus on that micro-commitment bucket survey for this first example. So what you see in front of you here is a landing page from one of our businesses, the business I mentioned earlier called Rocket Memory in the memory improvement space. And again, this is a business where we teach people how to improve their memory by offering a series of courses around this. And when we first entered this market, we struggled. We were doing what everybody else in the market was doing, which is a typical landing page and squeeze page, right? Where we try to give some ethical bribe away in exchange for someone's name and email. And when we did that, we struggled. In fact, you can take a look at our results right here. Now, if you're not familiar, this is our Google AdWords dashboard for this particular business. And what you're looking at in the red square or box is our cost per lead. So, show of hands, $12.89 to generate an opt-in, to generate a lead. Is that good or is that bad? The answer is neither. The answer is it's terrible. I mean, it's abysmal, and every time I look at these numbers, it makes me anxious because I remember when we were going through this time and had so much difficulty getting opt-ins to convert, getting leads to actually convert in this market. And if you want to look at our opt-in rate, it was 5%. I mean, that's just so terrible. And so I almost gave up on this business when I saw these numbers, and we couldn't break free from this. So I went back to the drawing board. And I said, well, maybe what everybody else in the market is doing just doesn't work. This one-size-fits-all answer, trying to jam something down people's throat in exchange for their name and email. So I went back and I said, well, how would I help someone if they came up to me in person? So back in the days when I was actually studying and I taught a section of neuroscience at Brown for 2 years, and if someone came up to me and said, Ryan, I hear you help people with this memory thing. Is this something that you can help me with? How would I approach that? Well, the way I'd approach that is simple. I wouldn't start by trying to jam my solution down their throat. What I'd do is I'd start by asking questions. I'd start by saying, yes, it's true. I do help people with their memory. In fact, that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years of my life, and I've been doing it all day, every day. But before I can help you, I need to know a little bit more about your situation. And if you could take just a moment to tell me a little bit more about what you're struggling with, maybe what you're looking to do, why you're looking to improve your memory, and a little bit more about your situation. With that information, I can probably give you a recommendation on what I would do in your situation and point you in the best possible direction for you. Now, with that context, I thought, well, what if we apply a similar approach online? Instead of trying to jam our one-size-fits-all solution down people's throat, if we take that sort of counterintuitive, contrarian approach, unlike anybody else in the market, and just ask a few questions, and then use that information to prescribe the best solution for them. And when we did that, here's what happened overnight. Our numbers went from $12.89 a lead to $4.97 a lead, and a 5% opt-in conversion rate to 12.5% opt-in conversion rate. But the good news is it gets better. Because over time, that consultative approach, and by the way, if you're looking at the numbers and doing the math at home, that accounts for a 61% decrease in our cost per lead and 143% increase in our opt-in rate. But like I said, it gets better. Because over time, that whole bucket survey concept that I introduced evolved to include something I describe as micro-commitments. Now, what are micro-commitments? Well, once again, I went back to my background and I thought about the research around the psychology of making decisions. And there's something that's interesting about making decisions. And it has to do with this idea that any change someone makes in their life, whether it's positive or negative, is perceived by your brain as a threat. And whenever your brain perceives a threat, it elicits the fight or flight response. And there's a actual chemical cascade, a reaction that happens in the limbic system of your brain in a structure known as the amygdala, which is responsible for dictating and regulating that fight or flight response. And whenever you ask someone to make any sort of decision or take any sort of step, it elicits that part of the brain and causes that fight, flight, or freeze response to take place. But here's what's interesting about that. That there's actually a way to hack that response. And the way you hack that response is by asking someone to take a step that's so small that it doesn't elicit those warning bells. It's a step that's so small that is no longer perceived as a threat. For example, if I ask you to blink your eyes, blinking your eyes comes like second nature. You don't even think about it. And so I thought, well, what if we translate this concept? My hypothesis was, what if we translate this concept online? And instead of asking people to answer a series of questions all at once, we break it down into a series of tiny little steps that are so small that the fight or flight response isn't fired. And the reason why this is so important is online, so many people start with what? They start with a landing page, and the landing page asks for name and email. Now, name and email might not seem like a big deal, but name and email is effectively like meeting someone for the first time that you've never met before, and instead of shaking their hand or offering to shake their hand, that person reaching in for a big, sweaty hug. For some people, maybe that's cool, but for the vast majority, it's a little too much too soon. So here's what we did. We'd send people to a video, and this is from another example, but just to illustrate the point. Send people to a video, and below the video, we'd have a button. The button would pop up a survey. The survey would ask people a series of questions, one multiple choice question at a time, that culminated in an email opt-in step, instead of doing it all at once. And the result? We went from $4.97, so just about $5 a lead, to just over $3 a lead. We decreased our cost per lead by an additional 32% and increased our opt-in rate by another 52%. I'll say it again. We decreased our cost per lead by a third and increased our opt-in rate by over 50% simply by breaking things down into a series of non-threatening, multi-step, micro-commitment questions. So now if you're doing the math at home and you want to look at what that overall effect was on our business, starting with the initial step where we started, we decreased our cost per lead by 76% and increased our opt-in rate by 271%. Now, I know those numbers just sound like numbers and they don't really mean something, so let me put it in dollars and cents. Imagine right now in your business, if you're spending $1 for every email opt-in, imagine if you woke up tomorrow, turned on your computer, fired up your dashboard, wherever you get your results, and you found that you're spending 24 cents to acquire that lead, whereas a day before you were spending $1. Ask yourself, if you were able to do that, what would that do for your business? But the good news is it gets even better when we solve the second problem, which is not knowing why your customers or your non-customers don't buy. And the solution to this problem is the second survey that we're going to be covering today, and it's something called the Do You Hate Me survey. Now, what is the Do You Hate Me survey? The Do You Hate Me survey is this. So whenever I get someone into one of our funnels, and I've taken them through a series of steps, eventually I like to take them through the absolute best possible offer that I can offer for whatever it is that I'm trying to sell. So the best possible deal that I can make available. Now, if they still have not purchased from me after that best possible deal, usually involves something like a split pay option, so offering a few payments, or maybe a $1 trial, and I don't do this in every single case, but when I do this, after that, if they haven't yet purchased from me, I'll send out an email, and the email has a survey, and the survey asks, do you hate me? In fact, here's an example of one of the emails that we use. And by the way, do you hate me doesn't necessarily need to be taken literally. I like to call it the Do You Hate Me survey. It's gotten that name because it's a polarizing way of asking the question of why haven't you bought? But there are a number of different ways that you can use it and adapt it depending on what business that you're in. So you can call it the Did I Do Something Wrong survey. You can call it the Was It Something I Said survey. There are a number of different ways that you can reframe it if this language is a little too emphatic or polarizing for your particular market. So here's an example of the Do You Hate Me survey in action. So this is an email. This is some actual copy, and I'll read it to you. And by the way, if you're taking notes, this is some copy that you're going to want to jot down because this is something that you can use and swipe and deploy in your business and something that you could fire out to your email list moments after we finish up this afternoon. So, email, subject line, do you hate me? And the email goes like this. Hey, it's Ryan here, and I need your help real quick. But first, I need to ask you a question. Do you hate me? Now, the reason why I'm asking is because the other day I gave you the chance to try the XYZ program for free. Now, in this market, we offered an opportunity to try it for free. But for some reason, you passed. And that's perfectly fine, but it did strike me as a little bit weird, and it did make me wonder, is it because of me? Was it something I said, something I didn't say? Or in other words, do you hate me? And I usually put a smiley face to know that it's tongue-in-cheek and that I'm joking about that. But it has the effect of getting people's attention. And then the email goes on to say, if you do me a favor and click on the link below and tell me what was the reason why you decided not to invest in the XYZ program right now, it would mean the absolute world to me. Thank you so much. Have a great day. All my best, Ryan. Now, the question is, what's the big deal? What's the big deal with this simple little survey? What kind of value can it bring, and why might you consider adding this to your business? Well, let's go through another case study. So this time we're going to look at a client partner business in which we sent the Do You Hate Me survey recently to about 22,000 people. So we sent this email out to 22,000 people, got about 7,500 to open, 2,000 of those people to click, and then of the 2,000 we got 1,000 people to fill out our survey. Now this is the dashboard from our Survey Gizmo account. You can see that there are about 1,000 total completed responses, including the partials on this dashboard. So now, when we did that, the results were surprising. So what we found when we sent this survey out to our list was that there were basically 5 things that we had completely missed the boat on when it came to crafting our sales messaging. Things that we didn't do a good job of explaining, objections that we didn't do a good job of overcoming, and the big one was that we completely overestimated the fact, or underestimated the fact, that we offered this promotion over what was a religious holiday weekend for one religious group, and we completely underestimated the effect that that would have on our sales. In fact, we had people who came to us left and right in the survey saying, listen, if I had known that this was available, I would have been happy to invest in the program. If I hadn't unplugged for the holiday itself and been away with family and turned off my computer, then I would have been very interested in this. And so what we decided to do was simple. We decided to go back to our list and we said, okay, given the fact that there was a holiday weekend that we didn't account for and that we didn't do a good job of explaining a few things, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a webinar where we answer all those questions, and we sent out a few emails that covered all the most frequently asked questions that came up as a result of that Do You Hate Me survey. Now, that in and of itself is not interesting. What's interesting are the results. So we sent this out, and you saw the numbers that we sent out. And from this Do You Hate Me survey alone, this follow-up promotion and what would have otherwise been the end of our marketing campaign, we picked up an additional 445 sales, generating over $19,000 in income. Now, I know that these numbers in a vacuum really don't mean anything at all, so let's put this in the context of the overall promotion. So again, we sent this out to 21,000 non-buyers, 7,500 open, 2,000 clicks, 1,000 people filled out the survey, and of that group, 445 people bought. And if you're doing the math at home, what that means is, of those non-buyers, we picked up an additional 2%, converted them into customers. Remember when we talked about at the beginning of this presentation how the secret to taking your business to the next level is identifying that 90% of people who come to your business, come to your website, and don't buy, and converting a portion of those people into customers? Well, this is how you do it and chip away at that 90%, 1% at a time. Now, by the way, just in case you're wondering, the number of buyers that we had before we sent out the Do You Hate Me survey was 1,238. Afterwards, those 445 additional buyers represented an increase of 36%. So in other words, simply by asking that Do You Hate Me survey, we increased the size of this promotion by 36%. Show of hands, who wants to grow your business by 36% simply by asking people a simple little survey question? Well, the good news is it gets even better. when you solve that third problem that we talked about, which is not knowing what else to sell your customers. And for this problem, we're going to use yet another survey. In this case, we're going to use something that I call the pivot survey. Now, what is the pivot survey? Well, the pivot survey is this. If you notice from our previous example, even after we sent out those 21,000 and change emails and we got 445 sales, we're still left with what? A list of over 21,000 people who still didn't buy, even after our best attempt to get them to convert. So what do you do next? Well, what you do next is use the pivot survey. So the pivot survey is essentially a game of, okay, you didn't buy that first thing that I put in front of you. What would you like me to talk about next? It's sort of a game of, am I getting closer? And once again, just like the Do You Hate Me survey, it's a survey that you send out through email. And the survey looks like this. Here's an example. And again, if you want to take some notes on some actual copy that you can swipe and deploy, then pay close attention. So just to take an excerpt from this, I'm like the brain surgeon who comes in, does his one piece, saves the guy's life, and then moves on to the next one. There are maybe 3 people in the world who could do it, and I am one of them. So the big question is this. What would you like me to talk about next? How to get more clients, how to raise your rates, or how to productize your services? And I know this gets cut off, but basically what this email says is simply click on the link above that immediately sounds most appealing, and starting right away today, we'll start talking about that new subject starting minutes from this very moment. Now, what are we doing here? We're letting people self-select what they want to talk about next. What is the problem, challenge that they are most interested in solving next? We sort of acknowledge the fact that, well, we didn't quite get it right the first time with the first thing that we tried to sell you, and that's perfectly fine. And we're still friends, and I still want to work with you. So you tell me, what should we talk about next? Now let's take a look again. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but let's take a look at what sort of numbers that we generate when we use this approach. So if you remember from the previous example, we did about 1,238 initial buyers, 445 buyers we picked up from the Do You Hate Me survey, which was a total of 683 buyers, or 1,683 buyers, excuse me. The pivot buyers offered 3 options, A, B, or C, and generated an additional 217 customers simply by asking, what should we cover next? Now, if you want to look at it from an overall revenue perspective, the initial buyers generated over about $53,000 in revenue. When we added the Do You Hate Me buyers, we picked up an additional $19,000 in revenue. And then when we added that pivot revenue, an additional $8,000 in revenue, which represented over $27,000 in additional revenue. So without each of these 2 surveys, this would have been about a $52,000, $53,000 campaign. Picking up that additional $27,000 in revenue represented an increase of over 51%. So to put this in another perspective, if you did $100,000 in income last year, this would be like growing your business to $150,000 simply by asking 2 simple questions. If you did $200,000 in your business last year, this would be like growing to $300,000 simply by asking a few simple questions. So show of hands, who wants to grow your business by 50% simply by asking a few simple questions to the right people at the right time in the right way? Oh, and by the way, those numbers don't even include the pivot survey to buyers, so people who actually bought that first product, which is actually where the real money is. So like I said, this stuff is simple, right? But remember, simple gets results. 3 million leads, over 200,000 customers, 23 markets, over $100 million in revenue across all those markets. Simply by combining these 3 techniques, the micro commitment bucket survey, the Do You Hate Me survey, and the prospect pivot survey, which again are found here in the context of our overall process, as well as everything that you see here. Which leads us to the question that most people have, which is, okay, this is cool. I get that these 3 tactics are important, but I also kind of understand that these things don't exist in a vacuum. Like, for example, one question that you might be wondering is, how do you come up with that micro-commitment bucket survey? What questions are you asking? How many questions? And how do you figure out what buckets you actually want to filter people into? And by the way, how do you filter, how do you position that survey so that people actually are willing and interested and want to actually answer that survey and take it? And I'll give you a hint, you're actually not calling it a survey. In fact, prospects don't even realize that they're taking a survey in the way that you positioned it to them. What about what happens after they go through that survey? So they take that survey, and then what? What happens, what do you do to monetize those people after they come into your world? And what about those two surveys we talked about, the Do You Hate Me survey and the Pivot survey? Those surveys work so well, not because they exist in a vacuum, but because of the way in which that they're positioned, the lead up, the number of emails that precede them, that position them in a way so that people are compelled to answer those surveys, answer them honestly, and give you useful intelligence that you can use to guide your decision making. So what you see in front of you here is something called the survey funnel formula. This is the formula that I've used personally in my company and myself to generate all the results that we talked about in the first half of this presentation. And the reason why I'm bringing this up today is because if you are listening to this and you've started to get a taste for what this might do in your business and you are interested in applying this in your particular business, I want to walk you through how you can begin applying this in your business and walk you through the exact 6-week process that I use whenever I implement one of these funnels in my business to show you how you yourself can implement this in your business. And I want to walk you through the process if you want to go to the next level, if you want to take the next step, and you want to go deeper in this, how we can do that together. So the first thing that I do whenever I build one of these out, so when I say I'm talking on behalf, speaking on behalf of my company. We have a team of about 27 people now in our company, and what we do all day, every day is build these funnels out, and we teach people how to build these funnels out, which is what we're talking about today. So in the first week, I do something called the Deep Dive Pre-Survey. This is the survey that sets up everything else in your marketing. This is the survey that's going to answer all those questions of identifying the buckets of people in your market that are worth focusing on and those that you actually want to ignore. And this is one of the biggest keys to the process. Everything starts with this Deep Dive Pre-Survey. This is a survey we did not talk about today. The second thing in week 2 is the micro-commitment bucket survey. So in the second week, whenever I build one of these funnels out, we actually work on building out that micro-commitment bucket survey, answering all those questions that I mentioned around what questions are you going to ask, how many questions, why are you asking those questions, what questions are you using to lead people down different paths, and so on and so forth. In week 3, we actually build out the landing page, how to position that survey so that when people land on this landing page on your website, whether that the traffic is paid traffic, Facebook ads, Google AdWords ads, Twitter ads, or anything like that, or if it's something like organic SEO traffic, or if you're driving traffic from your email list or someone else's email list. And I know I talked about how the fact that this is something you can use for cold traffic. Well, the interesting thing is that this works just as well, if not better, to warm traffic as well. So if you are using affiliates, if you are using joint venture traffic, this is the page that you're sending people to, and that's something that we complete in week 3. Then in week 4 is where we build out the same visit sale video sales letter, and there's a very unique formula that we use for this. So this is people who have gone through the survey and then are exposed to typically one of several variations on a sales message. And that variation will depend on how they answer the survey. So in week 4 is where we build out the variations for that video sales letter. And week 5 is where we build out something called the profit maximization upsell sequence. And there are 3 specific structures that we use whenever we build one of these out. And it all ties back to the answers and the way in which someone answers that micro-commitment bucket survey. And this is unlike anything else that anybody else does. And then in week 6 is where we build out our email sequences, where we build out both our prospect email sequence, the sequence of emails that people get who have not purchased the product yet, as well as our customer sequence. So these are people who purchase the product, and we take them both to that pivot survey. And then once you've gone from micro-commitment bucket survey all the way through to pivot survey, the beautiful thing is that you can chain these together one right after the other. In fact, we have markets in which we have 6 or 7 of these that are chained together one right after the other, And this is how we build out our long, powerful sequences that make all that money. Remember, where is it made? On the back end. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up to you is because earlier last year, I attended a mastermind. And what you see in front of you here is my process that I've used basically for the last decade. And up until last year, this is something that I had never taught publicly because, to be perfectly honest, this is my secret sauce. This is my unique methodology. It's how I've generated all my success. And I attended this mastermind, and I brought up the fact that I needed to rapidly expand my team. This is when we were sort of in rapid expansion mode, and I was hiring a whole bunch of people, which we still are right now, but I was hiring a whole bunch of people very quickly, and I brought up a challenge I was having to the mastermind, and I said, hey, listen, I'm looking to bring a whole bunch of people on the team really quickly, and I need a way to train people up fast. I need people to get up to speed so they can implement this on behalf of me so I don't need to personally be involved in every single funnel that we're doing. And here's my idea. My idea is I'm going to take a real-life funnel that I'm building from scratch and actually walk through the step-by-step process. Not just the technical bits of it, but also the psychology, the thought process, the rationale behind every decision, why every word I choose on a landing page script is chosen, why every survey question in the micro-commitment bucket survey is phrased in the way that it is, how I analyze that deep dive survey, and basically my entire process from start to finish, go through my entire 6-week methodology and have people on my team follow me, go through that process with me, ask questions, take notes, and basically at the end of it, get inside Ryan's head and get inside this process so they can replicate it myself. What do you think? I posed it to the group, and I said, what do you guys think? And universally, everybody in the room raised their hand and said, Ryan, I think that's the way to go. I think that's brilliant. And then at the end of my talk, one person raised their hand in the back of the room, and they said, you know, Ryan, not only do I think that's a great idea, but I have a question for you. I would love to sit in with your team on that training. Is that something that you might be willing to consider? And at the time, it wasn't something that I had ever even crossed my mind. Because again, like I said, this is my secret sauce. This is what I've built my entire business on. It's really my Coca-Cola formula. And I thought for a moment, and then basically everybody around the room started nodding their heads and saying, yes, I'd love to get access to this as well. And so I decided, as an experiment, to do what I'd never done before. I decided to let people in outside my company into my own internal company training portal. And along with the team members that I had recently hired and brought in, I let a few other people sit in on this training with them. And the feedback was overwhelming. People came back to me and they said, Ryan, this is absolutely brilliant. This process that you have is so dialed in. I've never seen anything like that. Now, they did have a few questions. We addressed those questions. And one of the questions that people brought up was they said, you know, Ryan, I recognize that one of the reasons why your process is so successful is because the copy is so good. And I'm not a professional copywriter. I'm not someone who's invested 10,000 hours in writing copy. Is there something you can do to help? So what I want to do today for you, for anybody who wants to move forward and get access to the training that I'm about to make available to you, this opportunity, I want to also give you access to another type of training. That's something that, as you'll see in a moment, I'm not allowed to make publicly available. And it's training that I developed with a marketer by the name of John Benson, whom I know many people on this call probably are familiar with. If you're not familiar with John, he's largely regarded as the godfather or one of the godfathers of the video sales letter methodology. It's a training that John and I developed in 2010 called VSL Fast Track, how to write landing page, same visit sale, upsell videos, even if you're not yet a world-class copywriter. And I need to explain why this is so important. So when John and I created this course back in 2010, we sold hundreds and thousands of copies of this program. It was extremely successful. It was so successful, in fact, that John came to me one day and said, Ryan, I think we're vastly undercharging for this training. In fact, I have plans that I want to put together a program that I'm going to charge anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 for that delivers this level of training. But there's a problem. The problem is this. If I'm going to be doing this, if I'm going to put this on the market, then we cannot sell this $497 VSL Fast Track program because it's going to cannibalize my sales. I can't have something that undercuts my own pricing. So what are your thoughts around taking this off the market? And it was a blow. When he brought that to me, it was a bit of a blow, and it sort of took me aback. Eventually, John and I came to an agreement, and we came to an agreement that we would never make this course available for sale, ever. And that's why you don't see this course available public for sale. But we had one condition, and the condition was this, that I could make this program available for free for anybody who might invest in a future training program that I might develop. And the reason why I want to bring that up is because when you invest in the training program that I'm about to make available to you today, you are going to get access to this program, VSL Fast Track, which you cannot buy. You cannot get it anywhere. It's a program that we sold hundreds, and like I said, thousands of copies of the program for $497. You're going to get access to that for free. And just to give you a sense for how much value is in this program, here's a comment from one of our students, Jonathan, who said, so I jumped into the VSL thing, talking about the VSL Fast Track course, and was able to create a funnel that's converting 250% better than my old video. And that's just in regards to this bonus training that you are about to get access to right now. Now, the question is, what is this program going to cost? When you combine it with the Survey Funnel Formula training program that I mentioned is a 6-week recorded training program that walks you through how to build one of these funnels from start to finish. Again, when I've mentioned this program, and I've explained this program, when I've told people what's in this program, when people have seen this program, they've told me that this is something that I should be selling at a price point that is in line with someone like Jeff Walker, who's a friend and mentor of mine, sells his product launch formula course, something that's maybe $1,000, maybe even $2,000 for this training. But it's not something that I'm going to sell for $2,000 or even $1,000 or even $500. And I'm going to explain why in just a moment. The answer to the $64,000 question, what is the Survey Funnel Formula training going to cost, including the VSL Fast Track bonus? It can be yours for just one payment today of $197, but only when you visit the link that you see on this page, surveyfunnelformula.com/Daniel. And Megan, would you just do me a favor and please put the link to this training in the actual GoToWebinar chat, surveyfunnelformula.com/Daniel. And someone on this call, would you just do me a favor and actually click on the link and go to that URL just to make sure that I didn't mistype it and that it is correct. I've made the mistake on past trainings in the past where I've actually just typed in the wrong URL, and I just want to make sure that it's working okay. I'm just going to go to the chat to make sure that everything looks like it's working. Awesome. Harry says it's working. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. 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 Great. Great, great, great. Good. Good, good, good. All right. Just making sure that a few people were able to get this. Now, I want to mention a few things. So first things first, before I talk about guarantee, which I think is important, I want to talk about why the question that you should be asking yourself if you're not already asking, and that's, well, I don't get it, Ryan. You make millions of dollars a year basically using this formula. Why would you be giving away your secret sauce for what amounts to be next to nothing, $197? Well, what's the catch? Well, the catch is this. It's not really a catch, but I want you to understand my motivation. So my motivation is this. I know that every time that I deliver this training and I make this training available at a cost that's affordable, that anybody who is a serious business owner can afford to invest in this and get a massive 100 to 1,000x ROI. Whenever I've done this in the past, I know that I always get, for every 100 people who invest in the training, I'll get 1, 2 people who reach out to me and say, hey, Ryan, I love the training idea, but I'm one of these people that has more money than time. What would it cost to have you and your company just build the whole thing for us, and so I don't have to worry about it? And that's my dirty little secret. My dirty little secret is that I know that for every 100 people who invest in this training, I'll get a small handful who will come to me and say, Ryan, I'd rather just pay for your agency to do this for me. And to be perfectly honest, that's all I need to make me happy. And the way the numbers work out, the more people I get exposed to this training, the more people become interested in our higher ticket offers. And so that's the reason why I'm making this available at such an amazingly low price. In fact, I've priced this in such a way that if you only implement what you learn in the first module of this program, in the first of the 6 weekly modules, that you will more than get a 100x ROI on your investment. The program is that comprehensive, and I'll talk a little bit more about what's in the program in just a moment. But before I do that, I also want to talk about something that I think is important, which is this. I get the fact that we don't know each other very well. You don't know me very well. This may be the first time that we've ever had a chance to talk together. And for that reason, I get that you might not know if this approach is right for you or your business. So what I want to do is I want to give you a way to where you don't have to decide today if the Survey Funnel Formula course is right for you. And let me explain what I mean by that. When you click on the link and grab your copy of this training right here, right now, while we're live, I'm going to give you the opportunity to go through the first 4 weeks of the course before you even have to decide if you want to keep it. No questions asked, no hoops to jump through or anything like that. And the way this works is simple. You have a full, unconditional, 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee, which means you can go through the first 4 weeks of the course. You can watch all the videos. You can download all the videos to your hard drive. You can download all the step-by-step cheat sheets. You can go through and download all the copy swipes, all the templates. You can go through all that, download it, use it, try it, apply it. You can follow along with me in real time and build out one of these funnels in your business and decide, does this work for your business or doesn't it, before you have to decide if you want to keep it. And if you decide for any reason or no reason at all that this is not right for you or it just doesn't work or just not a fit, all you need to do is send a one-line email to my customer service director. Her name is Kimberly. Her email address is contact@RLAssociatesLLC. And Megan, if you could put that email address in the chat, that would be great. All you got to do is send Kimberly a one-line email and say, hey, Kimberly, I decided that this just isn't a fit for me, and you'll receive a full refund of your purchase. No questions asked, no hoops to jump through or anything like that. And the reason why is simple. Remember when I mentioned that the opportunity is not in the first thing that you might sell to someone, it's in the back end? See, I look at this as an opportunity for you and me to start a relationship together, for us to, for you to get a taste for what it is that I do and hopefully be the first of many things that we do together. I'm someone who plays the long game. I have private clients that I've been working with for more than half a decade, and they stick with me and they work with me and they never want to leave because I'm someone that plays this very long game, and this is just the start. And I've learned that when you give people access to some of your absolute best stuff at a price that's so overwhelmingly a no-brainer, that it's the great way to start a relationship, and that's the way I look at this. And so the reason why I bring all this up is if you're asking yourself, well, what's the catch? Why are you making this available for such a low price? Well, there it is. I've laid it all on the table, and I want to make that perfectly clear. Now, we're going to get to some Q&A in just a moment because I was just looking at the chat, and I noticed that there's a bunch of Q&A, and Daniel, I'll ask you to help me kind of monitor and go through some of that. But before we do that, I want to go through a few last things real quick. And that is, the question you might be asking yourself is, this is great, Ryan. I see that you've gotten a ton of results for you, for your clients, but what about regular marketers around the world? Who's actually using this? What kind of results are they getting using this methodology? So let's go through some examples one by one. So Will says, Survey Funnel Formula, it's the best and most comprehensive use of the surveying and segmenting technique that I've ever seen to date. Darren says, I've used the layering technique that Ryan mentioned, and I'm now getting a 53% opt-in rate from Facebook traffic after they self-qualify through a 3-question survey. Ronald says, when Ryan and I started working together, this project we've worked on has resulted in well over $500,000 in revenue for my business. Antonio says, I purchased a while back, and I haven't even gone through the whole thing yet, but my client has already had over 700 leads generated for his business, which turned into over 6 figures in coaching clients. And Darren Crawford says, ours is really half-assed, and he's talking about his survey funnel. Ours is really half-assed at this point, yet still producing a 40% lift in the total monthly revenue year over year. And Brandon says, it looks like this 7th time's the charm. By building a survey funnel and following Ryan's model, I was able to go from a 70% ROI losing money to 150% ROI making money in my business. And Corey says, since buying Ryan's course, I landed a cold traffic funnel client for $20,000 and 10% of funnel earnings plus a % of media spend using this exact methodology. Sean Mizell says, simply by following the formula and pathways Ryan has laid out in this program, I secured an $84,000 contract from this client to start in January of 2015 with a deposit up front. And marketers that many people will be familiar with are also customers and clients. Like, for example, Ryan Dice says, if paid traffic is what you're after, then you're wise to study Ryan Levesque. His stuff is built for scale. And this gives you a sense of just some of my clients and customers that I personally work with, including Ryan Dice, Perry Marshall, Brian Kurtz, builder of Boardroom, Keith Baxter, Andre Chaperone, creator of Autoresponder Madness, Ben Settle, Jack Bourne, Harlan Kilstein, Danny Inney, Firepole Marketing, Kurt Malley of Black Box Social Media, Keith Krantz, the co-author of The Entrepreneur's Guide to Facebook Advertising, Kevin Rogers, who's arguably John Carlton's #1 protege, Michael Lovich and Buck Risby, 8-figure supplement marketer, Steve Gray, 8-figure marketer in a number of different markets ranging from solar panels to supplements to the survival market, Erica Rocha, who is the #1 internet marketer in the worldwide Portuguese market, who licenses all products ranging from product launch formula to click pages, to all sorts of products. Marisa Murgatroyd, who's the creator of the Superhero Summits, Charles Kirkland, Greg Wells, Todd Brown, 6-figure funnel formula, Russell Brunson, the creator of ClickFunnels, Ryan Lee, Dagan Smith, Jonathan Mizell, Derek Johansson, and the list goes on. In fact, these are just a few of the many Inc. 500 and Fortune 500 companies that people will be familiar with who are customers and clients. And if you spend a little bit of time on our website, again, it's the same information that you are going to get access to that people are paying over $5,000 a month to be part of my private coaching practice. Again, this is a program that's completely full, has been full for over 18 months with a wait list of over 100 people to work with me to get access to the same information that you are going to get access to today. And these are some of the results that people have verbally articulated in their own words through audio testimonials on my site, literally tripled their profit this year. With the survey funnel strategy alone, increased front-end conversion by 100%, increased sales by $15,000 per week, and there are over 100 audio testimonials that articulate the type of results. Again, this is something that you can get access to today for just one payment of $197. And just to sum everything up, and then we'll go to Q&A, again, you get access to the entire 6-week recorded live training program, which includes everything that you see here, going through the entire survey funnel formula process, step by step, plus access to the VSL Fast Track bonus valued at $497, plus the opportunity to check everything out the first 4 weeks, absolutely 100% risk-free, all for just one payment today of $197, but only when you go to the link surveyfunnelformula.com/Daniel. In fact, if you go to surveyfunnelformula.com, you literally cannot buy or invest in this training anywhere else. This is the one place in the world at this price that you can get access to this training is through Daniel, and it's really just because of our relationship and because I know he and I are very simpatico on a lot of these things. So, Daniel, I hear you on the line. I'm going to take a brief break, take a sip of water, and why don't we get to Q&A?
Wow, I hope you didn't hear me breathing heavily while you were trying to talk.
It's like not at all, but I'm excited to answer any questions that we might have.
All right. Well, we do have some really good questions. Ray has an excellent question. He's asking, what's a nice, cheap way to find out why people don't buy?
A free, cheap way to find out why people don't buy is
a nice, cheap way. Nice, cheap way.
Nice, cheap way. Ask them. Run that Do You Hate Me survey. You'll be surprised. You'll be amazed at the results that you get when you run that Do You Hate Me survey.
All right. John asks, does asking questions on a webinar and getting responses count as micro commitments?
And say that again. Asking people questions on a webinar in what context?
I think he's referring to the context that you were asking questions and eliciting responses over the last hour.
Yes, it's funny that you picked up on that. So I'm a big believer in marketing integrity, meaning practicing what one preaches, and so that's exactly what we're doing. So when you're running a webinar, as a perfect example, asking people, "Can you hear me?" Asking people, "Would you like a copy of this flowchart?" These are all great ways to get engagement. These are forms of micro-commitment. So it's great that you picked up on that, and that's absolutely something that you want to be doing in your marketing, especially if you do webinars.
Way to go, John. Maureen asks, how do you get people to even open and engage with your emails? I know you talked a lot about using the emails with the Do You Hate Me survey and the Pivot survey and whatnot. Maureen is worried about getting them opened and engaging.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So one of the most important things is there are a couple strategies there. So first is have really compelling subject lines, and we spent a lot of time in the training, in the survey funnel formula training program, going through compelling subject lines that are designed to get people to open up those emails. And we talked about a few of them today. So the Do You Hate Me subject line is a great example of one that's compelling. It's polarizing. It gets people, it ruffles their feathers a little bit and gets people to open up and engage. The other thing is segmentation. So we talked a lot about that micro-commitment bucket survey that's designed to segment people and not only put people into different offers, but also, as you'll learn in the training, put people potentially into different email lists or different follow-up sequences. When you're able to get more specific on what someone's particular pain point is, what their hot buttons are within email, then your open rates soar because you're getting right to what it is that they want rather than trying to have a one-size-fits-all approach for everybody in your audience.
Rifle versus a shotgun.
Exactly.
Claire has a question. She says, what if I get stuck as I'm going through your survey funnel program? Is there any support?
That's a great question. So now that we've put over between 2,000 and 2,500 people through the training, and you'll see in the email follow-ups that you get, we solicit feedback all along the way. What we've learned, and you typically learn this, is after you put those types of numbers of people through any sort of training, you tend to see the same questions come up over and over again. And one of the things that I didn't mention that we've done is every single time that we delivered one of the training modules, we went back, asked for questions, asked for what didn't make sense. What do you want us to go deeper on? And then we refined that training, and we periodically do this over time. So what that means is you put 2,000 people through a training program, you see 98, 99% of the same questions over and over again, and we've made it a point to cover all those questions where people get stuck.
All right, Ed has a similar question, but in regard to the VSL formula. He's tried some templates and formulas, and so far they have not worked, and he's asking if he can get any help with where he's going wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I would strongly suggest checking out the VSL Fast Track formula. It's the formula that we use. Again, talk about the numbers that we're generating. You're getting access to what we're actually using. You're getting access to our best practices, what we do to generate those numbers. And so, obviously, this isn't a private coaching a program to coach someone through writing a VSL. I would strongly urge you to check out what we have in the VSL Fast Track course and apply that. Again, it's what we use. It's how we get results.
Okay, Dr. Fred Rouse asks, and forgive me if I pronounced your name wrong, Fred, I hope I didn't. Does this package include the WP plugin for Survey Funnel?
That's a great question, and the answer is no, it does not. And that's not, and I'll clarify something right now. So the WordPress plugin is something that I developed with a partner, and we sold that business back in 2011. And the reason we sold that business is a WordPress plugin is not something that you want to use for driving this type of for using the survey funnel process. I could get into the technical reasons for that, but a couple of them are plugins are notorious for creating conflicts on your website, and it can have nothing to do with the plugin itself, but other plugins that you might have installed, and the plugins independently have no problems. But it's the combination, the interaction of them that cause problems. So we sold that business. We actually have another software that we recommend. It's called Survey Funnel Software. That's what we actually use. So even though you might hear my voice on the Survey Funnel WordPress site, I am 100% not affiliated with that business. We sold that business, and it's actually something I don't recommend. Unfortunately, the company that acquired that business about 5 years ago has not done a good job of maintaining the service, maintaining the quality of the plugin, and so I steer people away from it for that reason. And to be honest, you're going to find that it's the inherent nature of WordPress plugins in general, because WordPress plugins typically you pay once for them, so the company has no incentive to continue updating it and servicing it and improving it because you've only paid once, and once they have your money, they have your money. Unlike software that is pay per month, that's an ongoing basis, like a software as a service, we're paying on an ongoing basis. The company has an incentive to continue delivering and improving on the software to keep you happy as a customer.
Okay, Fred asks, if I sign up today, will access be available after 6 weeks?
Yes, that's a great question. So when you sign up today, you will have lifetime access to the training program. So, and the reason why I say that is I know there are a lot of people who they might be in a situation, they're saying, this is cool, this is great, but I've got kind of a lot of things going on over the next couple of weeks, and I'm not sure if I can implement this right now. Well, my recommendation is this. My recommendation is to click on the link, get access to this now, even if you don't touch it for another month or two. That way you have it, you get access to it, because like I said, this isn't something that's just available to the general public all the time. We only make it available periodically. There's sometimes months will go by between making it available, depending on what other priorities we have in our business. We only we only work with one partner at a time, like we're doing right now with Daniel. We do that because my business, you have to understand, is built around helping a small number of private clients, high-level clients, in a very profound way. So it's not like we have a customer service desk of 50 people to service 1,000 new customers. We only let a small number of people in so we can personally take care of you, and I'll explain what I mean by that. You are actually going to be getting access to my company internal training area. So this isn't like some fancy membership site or anything like that. You're actually going to get access, just like if you were an employee of my company, to where we deliver training for our employees. So my assistant Kimberly, my customer service manager, she is going to actually set you up manually as if you were an employee with access to the training protocols that we talked about here on the call. And so I bring that up, even if you are busy with things or you have stuff that might be keeping you, I urge you to take advantage of this now so you don't miss out. And on the topic of doing this now, one of the things I didn't mention, Daniel, is the deadline to take advantage of this. And the deadline, if you want to write this down, for example, if you're in the car right now and you're listening to this and you don't have your credit card in front of you or you don't have access to your PayPal account, the deadline to take advantage of this is this Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, okay? Now, I urge you to do this right now while you've got the screen open, while you're thinking about it, before you forget about it. But if for some reason you just don't, the circumstances are not allowing for it, make sure that you remember. This is your reminder. This Sunday, 11:59 Pacific Standard Time is the deadline. After that, this will be closed. Everybody who's in will be taken care of. We'll be working with people who are in through the door. And if you miss out, you will have missed out on the opportunity, and I'd hate for that to happen.
Okay, both Ed and Dr. Fred have the same question. They're wondering about the survey funnel software. How do you get it? Is it included? Is it not included?
Great. So what you're getting access to for $197 is the training program that teaches the methodology on how to do this. As far as the software, you have a number of different options. So in the training program, I walk through, no matter what your budget is, no matter what your situation is, how you can implement this from a technical standpoint. I'll walk through some of those options. So you might be interested in using Google Forms as a way of collecting the survey data. You might be interested in using a third-party software like Survey Gizmo. You may even want to custom code something yourself if you're a developer or if you have a team of developers. And then as an option, you also have the opportunity to purchase our survey funnel software, which is a separate offering. And after you invest in the training, I will say this, you cannot spend any more than $197 with me today. In fact, there's no other way to spend any more money than that with me. That said, after you invest in the Survey Funnel Formula Training Program, you will have an opportunity to raise your hand and say, Ryan, I would like to possibly get into your community of people who are using this methodology in their business, known as the Next Level Mastermind. And when you do that, when you raise your hand and say, yes, I might be interested in that, you also get access to our Survey Funnel Formula software for free. That Next Level Mastermind is a separate offering. It is not required. It's optional. It's predominantly for people who would like to interact with other business owners who are using this survey funnel formula in their business, trade stories, see other case studies, trade ideas, build this community, be part of this community. And by the way, there are about 600 people in that community right now. It's a paid community. When you join that community, you will have access to the software. If you'd rather just have access to the software and purchase that separately, you can do that as well. But neither of those things, and I want to be clear about that, neither of those things are a prerequisite to using this methodology. We have a software that makes it easier, but it's not necessarily required. And we do that because there's some people that would prefer to just custom code their own software up. They'd rather just work with a developer on Elance and do something themselves, or they might have that skill themselves. But for the people who are not in that boat, we have the exact software that we use on our client installations, where we've generated all those results that I talked about, the 55,000 leads per day. That's the same software that we use. It's our proprietary software. We make it available to members of our mastermind, and we make it available for sale as a separate offering.
Okay. Felicia has a question, actually two questions. First question, will this work for a training/health coaching business?
Okay. It's a great question, so let's tackle that one. So let me give you a sense for some of the types of products that we sell, the types of businesses that people are using this in, to give you a sense for if this might work for you. So to answer your direct question, absolutely. If you have a coaching or training business, we have students, clients, customers who are using this formula, this exact formula for that exact type of business. Just to give you a sense for the type of products that this is working for and the types of traffic that we're sending. So this works for products everything from just pay shipping, $4.95 book offers, all the way through $2,000 pieces of water filtration equipment. We also use this in the business funding market to sell sometimes $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 business funding deals, as well as traditional information products ranging from $47 to $97 to $197 across all sorts of different training markets. We use this in consulting businesses and agencies where the offering is a service offering, kind of along the lines of what you're selling. We have people who are using this to sell handmade leather journals, apartment location services. The list goes on and on. As far as traffic sources, we send Facebook traffic, Google AdWords traffic, LinkedIn traffic, Twitter ads, Pinterest ad, email drops, display advertising, YouTube ads, traditional email marketing, affiliate and JV marketing, traditional SEO marketing, and the list goes on. So the way I can best answer this is, if you're wondering, is this for me? There are two broad questions, two broad situations that this entire methodology works well for. The first is if you sell one thing, but you have different groups of people that you might sell that thing to. So for example, if you sell health coaching, and maybe some people who come to you are, I'm just going to keep this generic, say moms who just had babies that are looking to lose weight, that would be one group. And maybe another group of people are women who have hit menopause and they've experienced weight changes as a result of the hormonal changes, right? Two very different groups of people with different wants, needs, and desires. Well, this survey funnel strategy is a fantastic way to sift and sort those people and deliver different marketing messages to them, even if you sell one thing to to both those groups of people. So that's the first type. Second type of situation that this works beautifully for is, let's say you have several different things that you sell, but a customer or client lands on your website for the first time and they just don't know which offer is right for them. Maybe you have different packages, different consulting options. Maybe there are different price points. Maybe there are different things that you actually deliver. How do you match that prospect up with the best fit solution for them? A survey funnel is a fantastic strategy to do that.
Okay, great answer. Felicia also asks, will I be able to ask specific questions as I'm going through your course?
Again, we covered that on the earlier question. When you put several thousand people through a training program, we know the questions that have come through. And if it turns out that there are additional questions that you want to ask, like for example, sometimes people have very specific questions about their specific business. They want feedback on their copy, on their landing page. Given the fact that Dan, you've seen my schedule is completely booked, and our team our agency is booked up for the next 6 months. Our next level mastermind, that community, if you opt to raise your hand and say, yes, I'd like to be part of this paid community, that is a fantastic way to get that type of direct feedback. Again, that's a separate offer. It's optional. You don't have to be part of that. But for many people who like to have that personal feedback in their business, it's a great option to also become part of that for that very reason.
Okay. And I don't know if you answered this or not. I know you spoke about the software, but I'm not sure if you told them how much your particular survey funnel software costs. Biggie wants to know.
Sure. So survey funnel software, you can purchase it alone for $97 a month, or you can get access to it for free when you become a Next Level Mastermind member. That's the mastermind with over 600 people who are implementing the survey funnel strategy in their business. You get access to the software for free when you become part of that group. That group is normally $197 a month. However, you can get in today when you, again, raise your hand and say you might be interested. You can reserve a spot at half price, grandfathered in forever at just $97 a month. So what that means is the training is something you can get access to for $197. That's the only thing that you have the opportunity to buy today. After you've gone through the training and you have that baseline level of knowledge and education, you have the opportunity to then become part of our mastermind at $97 a month, which also grants you access to the software for free. And the reason why we make people go through this training first is it's important that in our mastermind, everybody has the same level of education. Everybody comes in with the same level of knowledge. We're all informed. We all have gone through this training. We all know exactly how it works.
Okay, well, that answers your question, John. I think it does. It answers both questions. John was wondering how much is the what do you call it? Mastermind?
Next Level Mastermind.
Yeah, he was wondering how much is the Next Level Mastermind. Also the software. I think you answered those questions. John is asking, I have a very small list. This seems to be geared toward larger businesses with larger lists. And John is also concerned about getting emails open, getting people to read them, let alone have to click and answer a survey. And he wants to know what's your secret sauce, what's your incentive for getting people to actually take the survey in large enough numbers to make it work, and especially for a smaller business like his.
Yeah, that's a great question. We spend a lot of time talking about that. And so there are two things that I want to make sure that are clear about this. So one part of the methodology is all about building your list. Okay? So we talked about that micro-commitment bucket survey, and I'm not sure if John was here for the whole training, the micro-commitment bucket survey in the memory business where we gave that example. That's all about building your list. So if you don't have a list now, that is all built around building that list and continuing to grow it. Now, the Do You Hate Me survey and the Pivot survey are surveys that you send to your existing list, and the benefit there is based on the feedback that you get. It's not predicated on having any list. In fact, like I mentioned, this is the exact strategy that we use to break into new markets. And so I gave that example at the beginning where we took, just one of many, but just the one that I shared. We took a business from nothing to 6 figures in 12 months by executing this strategy. There are a number of different ways to get the initial survey data. So a few examples, and we talk about this in the course in detail, and we won't have time to cover the nuts and bolts methodology now, but I'll give a sneak peek. So we talk about how to drive paid advertising to a survey to acquire those initial survey responses to figure out what segments or buckets you're going to funnel people into. Another methodology is to actually reach out to a list owner in your space and offer to pay a small amount of money in exchange for running a survey to their list in order to get the initial data. And there are several other methodologies that we talk about, but the point is this. You can use this methodology. It doesn't matter if you're starting from scratch, if you have an existing business, and if you have a large business. It's really catered to really all three of those different situations.
Cool. So I think we're pretty much done. Dion has a question. I suggest you send an email to Ryan's support about your question there. Dion, welcome aboard, David. Glad to see you on the call. Welcome aboard, John. Glad to see you on this call as well. You're all old friends and valued customers. And I think we're done, unless you want to pop one in there at the last minute. Oh, looks like we have one there. Okay, Biggie asks, for a new business, what would you say should one's minimum monthly investment in traffic be? Tough question.
Yeah, it's really an impossible question to answer. It comes down to what you're able to afford, what your business goals are. You're going to the more you invest, the faster you're going to learn, and the more you invest in traffic, the money buys speed is really what it comes down to. So, you can, if you have less money to invest, it's just going to take you longer to come to conclusions and come to answers. If you have more money to invest, then you can fast track that by getting the answers faster. So it's difficult to, it's an impossible question to answer, without context. One thing I do want to mention that we didn't cover, Daniel, is, and I made this promise at the beginning of the training, is where to get access to the flowchart, the one-page flowchart. And I almost forgot, and someone reminded me. And I'm going to go here. Let's see. Okay. If you go to this link here, surveyfunnelformula.com/free, we just put together a quick, simple little form. Enter your name and email there, and what we'll do is we'll shoot you a copy of the flow chart when you add your name and email to that space. And it's a nice high-resolution version of this, so you can see all the fine print. You can blow it up. I know some people have actually gone to Kinko's and they've blown it up. I've had people send me photos of their office, and they've made this their background image on their computer, just because this is kind of like the central thing that they're building in their business, and they're kind of using it as the backbone. So that's I wanted to make sure that we honored that promise and do that. Daniel, thank you so much, man, for the comments. This is absolutely terrific. I really appreciate this. Really kind of you. I think there was David says, thanks, got to run. That's great. John says, I'm ordering. Awesome. Appreciate it, John. Look forward to seeing you inside. Eric's going to say, I'm going to show my friends. Look forward to seeing you. Let's see. Going through. Going through some of these. I think you did a good job of catching all and see if there's anything that slipped through.
There's just one more there.
Okay, go for it.
John is asking if the VSL formula is inside John Benson's Accelerator, or is this different training?
This is different. This is different training that John and I created back in 2010.
Right on. Thanks for the comment, Daniel Yulin. Great to see you taking advantage of Ryan's course. Looks like, apart from accolades and applause, it looks like that's all we have for questions. So, Ryan, I want to thank you very much for making this training finally available. I think we've been talking about doing this for maybe a couple of years even. I'm not sure.
I know.
Thanks for finally doing it, and
thank you for the opportunity to share it. I mean, I know your time is super valuable, Daniel. I know what kind of schedule you keep, and everyone on the call. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here. I hope that this was as valuable for you as it has proven to be in our business, and I hope you get a lot out of this. And everyone who's going to be moving forward with us, I really look forward to working with you. And I want to leave people with just one last thought before we wrap, and then Daniel, I'll let you just say some closing words. And that's, I recognize, like I mentioned, that you might not have all the information to make a decision because this is new. You might know me. So what I recommend is this. Don't try to decide right now with the information that you have if this is right for your business without at least checking it out. And so what I recommend is click on the link while this is available. Go ahead, take advantage of this special offer. Go through the first 4 weeks of the course. Download everything, watch all the videos, go through all the step-by-step cheat sheets, walk through the exact process, implement the tactics and techniques that you learn. And if you like the course, if you like the results that it gets for you, then keep it. And if you decide that it's not for you for any reason or no reason at all, just shoot me an email, shoot Kimberly an email, let us know. We'll send you a refund. No hassles, no hoops or anything like that. But my recommendation is don't try to decide if this is right without at least checking it out for yourself. And so once again, one last time, that link is surveyfunnelformula.com/Daniel. And with that being said, I think that's all I got.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Ryan. And I just want to add that the biggest reason for business failure is a lack of knowledge. And this is really the primo area of knowledge. If you can't convert a customer, or if you're struggling because you need to convert more, this is training that you absolutely need to have. And at $197, it's ridiculous. A ridiculously low price. So I highly recommend Ryan. I highly recommend Survey Funnel Formula, and get involved. So that's all I got to say, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Daniel. Have a great day, my man, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye.